On the third anniversary of my marriage with Fang Shixu, I sat happily in the restaurant where he proposed to me, waiting for him to go to the appointment. After waiting all night, he didn't expect to take a picture of the divorce agreement. I couldn't help laughing when I saw him return to the field to win the heart of the white moonlight. On the second day of the race, the report of a well-known retired racer's car accident spread throughout S-City, and Bai Yueguang also threw it into the arms of others. He cried bitterly and begged me to get back together. I looked at his injured hand and hugged the little fresh meat next to me with a smile. You were out of the game long ago. 1. Zhang, it's not in line with your character to go back so early today. My colleague looked at me, who had always been a strong woman, who couldn't wait to work overtime until the last one, to pack up my things, and was shocked when I was about to get off work. She must have an appointment with her husband. The little two are so sweet. Another female colleague also came over with a gossipy face. I carried my bag and waved my hand with a smile. Today is our wedding anniversary. I have to go back early to arrange it. Under the envious eyes of my colleagues, I drove to the restaurant that had been booked a month in advance. At the beginning, Fang Shixu proposed to me here holding a large bouquet of roses. Thinking of the sweetness at that time, I smiled shyly. The meal was arranged in advance, and the food could be served when Fang Shixu arrived. However, we had an appointment at 7 p.m., but Fang Shixu arrived late. I was a little anxious and afraid that he had had an accident on the road, so I quickly called his brother. There was still a busy tone on the phone. I listened to the sound of doo-doo and became more and more upset. He simply called the front desk of his company, but learned that Fang Shixu had already left work. When I was in a hurry to turn around in place, a strange phone call suddenly came in. The sound of the phone could obviously be heard with a voice changer. I just wanted to hang up, but his words kept me in place. There is the answer you want in the private room of Lanxing Bar 2397. After saying that, the phone was hung up without waiting for my response. I held my mobile phone and suddenly felt cold all over. On the wedding anniversary, he didn't go home or go to the appointment. Why did he go to the bar? I dare not continue to think about it. After all, I can't easily convict him without knowing the whole picture. However, I need to know the truth. I paid the bill in a hurry, and then drove to Lanxing Bar. After all, as the name of Lanxing Bar in the city, the only young master like Fang Shixu will go there. I galloped all the way to the door of the bar. Sure enough, I saw Fang Shixu's favorite sports car parked at the door so brightly. Half of the wall in my heart suddenly collapsed. I found the private room number 2397 according to the strange call. Unfortunately, there was no glass and the sound is good enough, but looking at the light in the private room also means that the people inside have not left. I pushed open the door directly. There was a pile of wine bottles on the table. Fang Shixu was sitting around his brothers, and there was a girl in a low-breasted suspender skirt next to him. When he saw me come in, he was still sitting there without raising his head. He continued to sit there and play with dice. At this time, his brothers were a little at a loss when they saw my sudden break-in. They were about to say something. After seeing Fang Shixu's face, they didn't dare to squeak. The girl sitting next to him looked at me provocatively. Sister-in-law, Brother Su is just drunk. You don't mind being so generous, do you? I didn't pay attention to the little girl, but went straight forward to pull Fang Shixu's collar and said, "Come home with me." But he waved my hand away. "Zhang Yuha, how old do you dare to care about me? I tell you, you are just a stand-in. Now the master is coming back, and we will divorce tomorrow." I looked at this drunken man and suddenly felt strange. I rushed up to hit him but was pulled by his brothers. "Zhang Yuha, you are just played with Brother Fang because you look like Su Lian. Now that you don't need you anymore, just roll down quickly. You really treat yourself as a dish." Su Shang took a cigarette and looked at me disdainfully, and his eyes were full of contempt. Looking at this scene, Fang Shixu's friends also knew that Fang Shixu really didn't want me, and he had no scruples. They directly took beer and poured it at me. The tall clothes on her body were unsightly by the wine. At this time the little girl also stood up, took us some money from her bag and patted me in the face. I was licked and begged Brother Fang to go home with you. "You're done, you know? We won't let you accompany you for a few years in vain. Take your tip and clean up and move out of Brother Fang's house quickly." There was laughter in the private room. They praised the girl for her beauty, and even the drunken Fang Shixu slapped her when she sat back. "Zhang Yuha, don't say that I treated you unfairly. In the past few years I have been kind and righteous. I didn't give you anything you want. That's it. I'll see the Civil Affairs Bureau at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I'm sure you won't let go like a pug." Fang Shixu lit a cigarette, leaned on the back of the sofa and looked at me. I looked at the noise and humiliation of the room. "Don't regret it. I'm about to turn around and leave. By the way, that apartment is reserved for you. You don't need to move. After all, I have to give a person a few thousand yuan a night. In these 3 years you can also get each house. Don't thank me." Fang Shixu opened the bag with his words. The door of the room came into my ears, and I couldn't stand it anymore. I killed a horse gun and spilled wine on him. He sarcastically said, I don't need the house. After all, according to what you said, I need a lot of money to find a duck. You can keep that apartment for your own sale. I went out of the private room and left the group of foxes and dogs alone. I found a towel to wipe him in panic. Fang Shixu stood up directly to hit me, but was stopped because he wanted to protect the image of a public figure. 2. After leaving the bar, my best friend has been waiting for me in the car for a long time. I got into the car, spread on the steering wheel, and cried to my best friend about everything that happened in the private room. The more grievances that I was held in my heart were finally released. I have been with him for 3 years. In the past 3 years in life, I have considered him everywhere and taken care of him meticulously. In work, I have given him a lot of companionship and helped him say all the good words in front of his father, so that he can continue to stay in his favorite racing industry. How can he do this to me? I counted the past heartbreakingly and cried like a vent. Baby, he doesn't love you. He just treats you as a stand-in, so he doesn't care about everything you give. Don't punish yourself for a scumbag. My best friend wiped my tears with a tissue distressedly. Since he doesn't love me, why did he propose to me? Why did he coax me with sweet words and abandon me so ruthlessly? I looked at the ring in my hand and threw it out directly. My best friend stroked my back. She knew that I didn't need to answer now. She just wanted to find a way to vent, so she accompanied me quietly. Even if he raises a wild dog, 3 years is enough time to feed him. He is worse than a dog. Since he can't let go of his white moonlight, let's chase it. I don't believe it. He couldn't find out the whereabouts of his white moonlight. What's the result? Just because of his cowardice, he wants to take advantage of my youth over the years. I drew a few pieces of paper and wiped the tears on my face randomly. I was very tired today, but I experienced this incident again, which shocked me deeply. In the end, I cried so unable to speak. My best friend saw me in pain and knew that she couldn't let me drive, so she sent me home. I saw everything about him in the apartment where I lived with Fang Shixu. The resentment buried in my heart surged up. That I looked at the wedding photos hanging on the wall, and the two people were full of smiles. Now things are wrong. I waved the baseball bat to drop the group photo, and then crazily tore up the group photo. Looking at all the things he sent me in the room, I put them all back. I didn't plan to take one away. I thought he was dirty, and I packed the things I used to send out sweetly and threw them into the trash can. Watching the sanitation workers take away the garbage, I collapsed on the ground. Thinking back on the sweetness of the past and the cruelty of reality, they overlapped and hit my brain. I pulled my hair and cried for so many years of youth. After all, I gave it to others by mistake. I have lived the past 25 years smoothly. Under the care of my parents, I have never suffered any major blows and setbacks, which also makes me particularly naive. Now that I have suffered these blows, I also began to reflect on the past and begin to repent. People say that as long as they hit the south wall and their heads are bleeding, they will turn around. I used to feel, love is the most beautiful thing in the world. Life without love is not perfect. And the beautiful love of my parents also makes me look forward to my future lover. But when I met Fang Shixu, his thought and romance make me fall in love. Even through daily performance, I vaguely feel abnormal, but the filter I come with will also brainwash me. But now it seems that the love in the world is not as pure and beautiful as parents. I won't pick up and use the broken mirror again, let alone a mirror that is blurred after other people's appearance. I'm going to throw it away and replace it with a new one. After a series of ideological struggles, I finally made up my mind to divorce him. Now that I have got the wrong answer, why do you want to pull the wrong process of tweeting? It's time to start again. I went back to the apartment and dragged the suitcase full of my things. Walk into the twilight. 3. Early the next morning, after asking for leave from the company, I packed myself up and prepared to say goodbye to the past in the best way. At 10 o'clock, I arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau on time. I saw Fang Shixu, who had been waiting for a long time. He swept me from head to toe and smiled disdainfully. You dressed up like this. You don't want to save me late. Let me tell you, I'm divorced today. I ignored him and went straight into the Civil Affairs Bureau. Fang Shixu was a little stunned when he saw that I treated him as heir, but he still felt that divorce was more important and did not have another attack. Soon, the 2 divorce certificates were freshly released. I went out and prepared to go to the company without looking back, and Fang Shixu also returned to the ranks of his friends. On the contrary, we ran in 2 directions without interfering with each other. I thought this was the last time we met. In the future, this person will be excluded from my world forever. Who would have thought that I would meet him again in a way that I thought of? Fang Shixu and I have been divorced for nearly half a year. Now I am also in a good mood. I have abandoned my love brain and I am shining in my career. In the latest promotion meeting, I was promoted to the position of general manager. The company also immediately arranged a temporary assistant for me. His name is Bai. He wears a pair of gold glasses and combs his big back, which gives people the feeling of a business elite. His ability is very outstanding. He can understand what I mean and take care of everything without repeating many times. The short month he came to work in the company impressed me, so he went with the flow and stayed by my side as a special assistant. We cooperated very well. In a daily gathering with my best friend asked me with a curious look, "Do you have anything else to do with your special assistant?" I wonder why she asked this question with a puzzled face. It's just a work relationship? What else can it matter? But she smiled and said, "Do you remember that you told me before that every holiday, there will be some small gifts on your desk? Haven't you always wondered who gave it to you?" I remember that I complained to her about the company's stinginess before. Every time I came back to work after the festival, there were always some snacks on my desk. Occasionally, there will be a small handful of flowers. At that time, I didn't care much, and I casually complained to my best friend that the benefits issued by the company were too stingy. In addition, I haven't mentioned it to others. I stared at my best friend incredulously, and there was an answer in my heart. My best friend gave me a look, and I realized that the answer in my heart was correct. These things turned out to be my special assistant. My best friend remembered the time she came to the company to find me, and met my special assistant by chance. She recalled his appearance and looked at me seriously. I think your special assistant is actually quite handsome. I see that his eyes seem to be a little interesting to you, and you've been calm for so long. It's time to fall in love. Why don't you try to be with him?" When I recall his appearance, there is always a feeling of cold elite on the surface. But in fact, there is always a little tendency to stick to people, although it is not serious. He always takes care of my life meticulously. Even if you are picky like me, you can't find anything wrong. But I didn't want to step into the river of love again when everything was inconcisive. When I was about to change the topic, my best friend suddenly exclaimed and woke me up. I'm wondering why my best friend, who has always been calm, is so excited. Yes, she is excited and mixed with a little gloating. My best friend turned her mobile phone over in front of me. A few eye-catching big words came into view. Fang Shixu, a well-known racer, was unfortunately injured in the F1 Formula 1 World Championship and went to the hospital for rescue. The name Fang Shixu has become strange to me. After half a year, I heard his name for the first time. I look at the name as if it were a different world. With his strength, he should not be injured in the game he often participates in. Although I have doubts, it has nothing to do with me now. The next day, I went to work in the company as usual. Su Shang called me one after another. I looked at his name and didn't want to take it. After all, the humiliation of that night was still unforgettable. I had no choice but to call one after another, which greatly affected my work. I had to listen to what was going on with him. What on earth is worth calling me over and over again? I answered the phone impatiently, and then checked the company statement handed over by Jiang Yubai. That sister-in-law, Brother Fang, is injured. He keeps shouting your name. Can you go to see him? Su Feng twisted and explained the meaning. I turned over the report and circled out a few questions, asking Jiang Yubai to type back and correct them. First of all, Fang Shixu and I have divorced. Don't call me sister-in-law anymore. Bess, why did he come to me when he was hospitalized? Go to find his white moonlight. Didn't the white moonlight he longed for come back? I stood up and looked out the scenery outside the window. That's it. I'm very busy. Don't bother me because of these things. I hung up after I said that. Looking at the incoming calls on his mobile phone, he was directly dragged into the blacklist, and he was not upset. Hello, hey. Su Shang saw that I hung up the phone and looked back at Fang Shixu, who had a black face. He called again several times but found that he had been blocked. He cried and said, "Brother Fang, Zhang Yuha. She blocked me and couldn't get through." Fang Shixu threw a mobile phone with a dark face and said, "Take my mobile phone and continue to call her." As a result, I changed 6 mobile phone numbers in a row, and one of them didn't work. This time I didn't even talk nonsense and was directly blocked. What should I do? Brother Fang, Su Shang looked at Fang Shixu's uncertain appearance. Get out of here." Fang Shixu hung the plaster and threw the pillow with his left hand. The others in the ward rushed out for fear of being affected. "Zhang Yuha, you are really good. Please wait for me." Fang Shixu whispered with hatred. 5. I just got off work, and my best friend has been waiting for me downstairs for a long time. I came down and saw her excited face. She not only smiled and said, "What a good thing happened to laugh like this. Let's go to dinner first and tell you while eating me." When I heard the news, I was very happy. The best friend started the car and drove happily to the restaurant. The best friend of this restaurant has a share, so we went directly to the private room without a reservation. Let me tell you, this is really great news. That pair of scumbags and bitches were finally taken by heaven. It's really a great welcome. Since your divorce, I have burned incense and cursed them every day, which is expected by me. My best friend took out a stack of reports from her bag and handed them to me. I took it over and looked at the content carefully. It is about my ex-husband and his love and hatred in the white moonlight. Su Lian, the white moonlight, has not been a good person since she was a child. She has been fooled by the boys she is interested in on the surface and behind the scenes. My best friend mentioned Su Lian's experience in the report with her hand. She knew Fang Shixu when she was in high school. Later, Fang Shixu's father found that his son was played by this girl. So he took action and spent a lot of money to send the girl out of the country without contact with them. As a result, the girl had enough tea. She told Fang Shixu that she didn't deserve it, and then disappeared. Fang Shixu said, after the divorce, her ex-husband was crematorium 39,103. I will never forget it. I looked through the report about Su Lian and looked at the news about the recent game. At the beginning, something happened when Su Lian promised to be Fang Shixu's girlfriend. She mentioned a racing race and said that whoever won would be his girlfriend. Of course, Fang Shixu participated. As a result, there was a boy who was better than him at that time. His dark criticism deliberately tiffed with other people's cars and hugged the beauty back. The best friend crossed her legs and looked at Fang Shixu's photo in the report contemptuously. The most coincidental thing is that this boy is the illegitimate son of a rich family, and he is especially liked by his father. It's okay. You mean that this game is not an accident, but the boy's family's revenge for him. However, this matter has been so long, why do you take revenge on him now? I looked at my best friend puzzledly. I have tripped him before, but he was guilty and was extra careful about everything. Coupled with his father's reasons, he didn't continue. But now he has returned to China because of the white moonlight, and his father is no longer good. The inheritance right is given to the eldest brother, who is not with him. The best friend paused for a moment. The most important thing is that the illegitimate child is gone. I can't believe it. Is it gone? Why are there no people? I heard that the day before the game the two met by chance. Fang Shixu provoked the young master to have a cerebral infarction and died on the spot. I can't help but sigh. Whether it's right or wrong, a living person's life is inevitably regrettable. But this matter has nothing to do with me, so I just take it as a fun. Then I continued to live my own life in peace. 6. Because I knew that all the small gifts were given by Jiang Yubai, I felt a little awkward every time I saw him, but because of work we almost didn't look up and look down. Later, Jiang Yubai saw that I was a little shy about him, and he behaved unnaturally when talking to me. I also know that he likes me. Since then, he has begun to pursue me openly. Whether it was the coffee handed over at work in the morning or the meal on the desk during the break, it was his attitude. The fact that he pursued me made the people in the company happy, and the senior management also joked from time to time that we are a good match. After we pulled each other for nearly a month, he took advantage of my birthday to buy a large handful of roses and my favorite cake. When he confessed to me, the people in the office were coaxing one after another. I looked at his trembling hands and anxious eyes when he knelt on the ground and recalled his meticulous care in the past 2 months. Because of the precedent of my ex-husband, I feel a little hesitant. Jiang Yubai saw my uneasiness and worry. He looked at me sincerely and said, Yuha, I don't force you to accept me quickly, but please give me a chance to pursue you. I believe that I will prove my intention to you with my actions. I looked at his serious side face and nodded. I decided that I couldn't overturn a boat with one pole, so I promised to give him a chance. 7. After another year, Jiang Yubai and I got along better and better. His care and sincerity still touched me. An accident happened when I finally decided to reply to him. On my way home from work, I saw a vague figure squatting in front of my house. Thinking of all kinds of murders written on the news, I felt scared and called Jiang Yubai. The phone was just connected, and before I could say anything, the man seemed to hear a sound, raised his head and then came to me. I turned around and wanted to run, but I was suddenly pulled. I struggled desperately. When I looked up, I found that it was my ex-husband Fang Shixu. I frowned and looked at him, pulling me with a lost face, and suddenly pushed him away. Fang Shixu, are you sick? Why are you pretending to sit at my door in the middle of the night? His eyes turned red and he stared at me. How long has it been since you found a new love? Jiang Yuha, don't you have a heart? I listened to his words in surprise and felt extremely ridiculous. Obviously, he cheated first, but now he scolds me for the sake of Bai Yueguang's divorce. Why doesn't he touch his chest to see if he has a heart? I didn't want to argue with him too much. I bypassed him and was about to enter the house, but he grabbed my hand. The man who has always been unruly is kneeling on the ground at this time. Jiang Yuha, I know I was wrong. Let's do it again, okay? I looked at the man in front of me and sneered in my heart. Have you come again? How to do it again? Even if 2 years have passed, those humiliations and pains still exist in my heart and cannot be erased. I have no way to forgive. There is no way to accept his late deep affection, because even without Su Lian, there will be another woman. He didn't be with me because he liked me, so there will always be a hurdle between us. And this hurdle is destined to make our contradictions inevitable. Even if Bai Yueguang doesn't come back, he will still divorce me. He will always be like this. You will never know how precious it is until you lose it. But how can there be so many people standing still waiting for you? I looked straight into his eyes. Fang Shixu, I told you not to regret it as early as when you filed for divorce with me. Now you look like this for someone to show. We are completely done, and please don't disturb my life in the future. I shook off his hand, walked into the house. The phone has never been hung up. Zhang Yubai asked me indifferently if I wanted to eat the steamed buns in Qingxi Alley. I adjusted my mood and flirted with him lightly. Well, I also want to drink the soy milk next door to his house. He smiled in a low voice on the other end of the phone. Good, don't need impurities, add more sugar, I remember. I'll bring it to you tomorrow. We chatted for a while and then I ended the chat reluctantly. For a week in a row, Fang Shixu squatted at the door of my house like a rubber candy. I was really annoyed. I couldn't get rid of it. I scolded him. He didn't move like a statue of a stone. As soon as I took a shower, my best friend called. Baby, do you know? That Su Lian and Fang Shixu broke up. I heard such a burst of information as soon as it was connected. I also said that Fang Shixu didn't go to be sweet with his white moonlight. Instead, why did he block me at my door for a week? What happened? Although I don't want to participate in this stall, I can't stand it. I'm looking for a new home. That bastard went to block you? When my best friend heard my complaint, she immediately exploded. Wait for me to find someone to get him. That I hurriedly stopped her and said, don't get excited, don't get excited. Tell me what happened first. Didn't Fang Shixu be hospitalized before? Domestic doctors can't completely cure his hand injury, so they transferred to foreign treatment. That Su Lian followed her. As a result, she bumped into a bunch of old people abroad, and then Fang Shixu's filters on her were all broken. My best friend looked at the information collected. The most outrageous thing is that Fang Shixu can't do anything abroad. Basically, he is no different from a disabled person. Seeing that he was worthless, Su Lian immediately dumped him to hook up with a rich second generation who came to visit Fang Shixu. The two of them looked at each other in front of Fang Shixu, which almost made the scumbag angry to death. My best friend was about to laugh out loud when she thought of that scene. I couldn't help but think of that scene and laughed with my best friend. That's it. Green people are always green. Then he went back to China by himself. When he saw the real face of the white moonlight, he came to me. The best friend shook her head. It's not that simple. He didn't believe it. He thought it was the rich second generation who seduced his girlfriend to have a fight with her. As a result, his father slapped him in the face and shook Su Lian's everything in front of him. He died. I sighed that it was more lethal than the white moonlight that had left or the white moonlight that had been rotten, but I didn't sympathize with any of them and everyone deserved it. I know the ins and outs of the matter, and I know how to get rid of Fang Shixu so that he doesn't bother me anymore. 8. When Fang Shixu came home from work the next day, who was still squatting at my door, his eyes lit up. He was about to take a few steps forward, but he was suddenly stunned. He stopped and braked the gate. Behind me was Zhang Yubai, who had just stopped the car and came late. He walked a few steps quickly, took the bag in my hand and walked home with me. We ignored Fang Shixu, who was at the door, and was stopped when we were about to step into the house. It's almost enough to send it here, right? It's impolite to go any further. Fang Shixu stared at Zhang Yubai with a displeased face. What qualifications do you have to stop me? Ex-husband, you don't seem to be qualified, do you? Zhang Yubai glanced at him and responded to him strangely. I don't understand what the man is crazy about, and I don't intend to pay attention to him. I took Zhang Yubai's hand and was about to enter the door of the house. Don't pay attention to him. He's stupid. Fang Shixu looked at the man who was about to go in. Finally, he couldn't help pulling him out directly and yelled at me. Zhang Yuha, how dare you? Who are you? Don't come in. Come out for me. Zhang Yubai couldn't stand such a repeated provocation. Why doesn't she dare? She has divorced you. If you know her, you should stay away from her. He looked at Fang Shixu's appearance and said, why do you care who she brings back? Let me tell you that I'm her honest boyfriend. I'm going home with my girlfriend. What does it have to do with you? Then he rubbed me intimately. Baby, your eyesight was not very good before. I touched his head that I can't help it. I was blind before. I just changed my eyes. Isn't your vision high now? When Fang Shixu heard this, he began to go crazy again. Zhang Yuha, really? You told me that he lied to me, right? Talk. Have you had enough of making trouble? I'm reiterating with you that we have nothing to do with it. It's none of your business whether I'm willing to come back on behalf of anyone. I was extremely irritable when I saw his unforgiving attitude. Looking at his unrelentless appearance, I intended to make him completely give up, so I turned around and kissed Zhang Yubai's lips. Zhang Yubai's eyes were full of joy, and then he hugged my waist and deepened the kiss. Fang Shixu looked at me and kissed me affectionately with other men. He couldn't help it anymore. He stepped forward and tore me away. Then he suddenly made a move and punched Zhang Yubai in the face. Zhang Yubai's enthusiasm was caught off guard by this punch, and suddenly staggered a little. Then he was unwilling to show weakness and punched Fang Shixu back. I watched them suddenly start fighting and hurriedly stopped them. Stop fighting, stop. Fang Shixu. Zhang Yubai. The two people didn't seem to hear it and no one stopped. After a while my voice attracted others. A neighbor who knew me came back from a walk and saw that I was at a loss as if I was scared. He quickly called the police and forcibly pulled them away when the police arrived. When he arrived at the Public Security Bureau, the policeman sat in a chair and began to mediate. What's going on? Tell me. If there's anything you can't say, well, just do it at any time. Fight in the street. Look at how scared the little girl. Comrade policeman, I just came home from work with my girlfriend. This person came out of nowhere and stopped us from entering. Later my girlfriend persuaded me for a long time and she kissed me. The man couldn't help pulling my girlfriend away and punched me in the face. Zhang Yubai looked at the police innocently with a bruised face. What's wrong with you? Why did you hit others for no reason? The policeman looked at Fang Shixu, who also had a wound on his face. He broke into a private house. Fang Shixu listened to Zhang Yu's words in white tea, and his eyes were directly anxious. Is there such a thing? Comrade policeman, I can guarantee absolutely not. I just entered my girlfriend's house and didn't break into the house. You can ask my girlfriend. Zhang Yubai hurriedly waved his hand to prove his innocence. The police comrade looked at me next to him and asked, You are his girlfriend. Did you enter your own apartment? I nodded in a hurry and took out the housebook I took to my best friend when I invited her to my new home for dinner. After the police confirmed that the landlord's information was correct, he asked Fang Shixu. The little couple went home. What's the matter with you? Why don't you let the house in? Before Fang Shixu answered, I hurriedly explained, Comrade policeman, I just took my boyfriend home after work. As a result, my ex-husband came out to stop us, said a few words and began to fight. The other party is your ex-husband? Yes, he has been squatting at the door of my apartment for a week. Are you still guarding others? After listening to the ins and outs, the police retrieved the surveillance and other physical evidence, and held Fang Shixu accountable him for 5 days. 9. After we finished recording the transcript, the police verbally taught us a few words and let us go. When I got home, I quickly took out the medicine box, gave medicine to Zhang Yubai's face, and looked at the bruises on his face. I lowered my head and felt very self-reproach. If it weren't for my fault, he wouldn't have been hurt. If I could be earlier and more vigilant, he would not have suffered this crime for no reason. Zhang Yubai has always been delicate. He saw my self-reproach and gently raised my face. Yuha, don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. On the contrary, I am very happy that you can think of me at the first time when you are in trouble. I looked at his bright eyes and serious expression, and couldn't help but come up and kiss his lips. He was also intoxicated by this long-cherished kiss, and we kissed each other for a while. When he let me go, we all gasped. Looking at each other's appearance, he rubbed my nose intimately and asked me carefully, Yuha, so have I passed your test? I looked at his expression and smiled. I buried myself in his arms and hugged his waist. Of course, my new boyfriend. When Zhang Yubai heard this, he happily hugged me and turned around again and again. It was not until I shouted to stop that he reluctantly let me down. I looked at his happy look and thanked God. How lucky he was to let me meet the real right person after meeting the wrong person. It took another week for me to know from other people's gossip that Fang Shixu was imprisoned for drunk driving. After the detention period expired, he did not go home, but went out to get drunk with his friends. After the breakup, she didn't find a substitute driver and drove on the road by herself. Then because she drank too much, she didn't see the traffic light clearly. She drove directly at the red light and unfortunately, someone happened to pass by so she hit her to death. Because the speed was too fast, the man died on the spot and Fang Shixu saw the person breaking in and hit and run directly. The day after this incident, the body was found by the cleaner in the morning. After calling the police, the traffic police investigated the surveillance and found that it was done by Fang Shixu. So Fang Shixu, who had just come out of the detention center for a few days, was sentenced to prison again. And coincidentally, that person happened to be the white moonlight Su Lian, who escaped from me and chased the little interest with the rich second generation. I couldn't help sighing. The fate was so clever that the two people were finally tied together in another way. I sat in the general manager's office and looked at the messages of my boyfriend and best friend on my mobile phone, feeling extremely satisfied. It rained outside the house and a rainbow came into view. Extra. The news of the news was actually from Zhang Yubai, and the details found out by his best friend were also revealed by Zhang Yubai. As for why Jiang Yubai knew so well, he actually thought he was reborn. When Jiang Yubai was an intern in the company, he was just a small employee who helped with chores. When he was preparing the meeting materials, I amazed him for the whole years and became the beautiful color in his heart. Because I heard that I liked the type of cold wind, the person who was not short-sighted also wore gold glasses and a suit, so that he wanted me to pay more attention to him. As a result, this secret love ended in vain. He learned from the master who took him that I was married. After a long ideological struggle, he stopped. But I passed away in just 1 year. He couldn't believe that I, who was usually in good health, died of illness in just 1 year? He didn't want to believe it. After investigating for a long time, he found that it was my ex-husband who connected his white moonlight and killed me because I didn't want to divorce. For such a simple reason, he cut off a human life. He wanted to avenge me, but at that time the Fang family was like the sun in the sky, and his power was like a mantis to the upper family. In the end, he was killed by someone. Before he died, he was unwilling to look at the sky. If he could do it again, it would be great. He would definitely tell me the truth in advance, and then pursue me, so as not to lose his beloved and regret it for a lifetime.